And I'd like to introduce Eugene. So Dr. Eugene Hendrick is a graduate of UCD School of Forestry with a Bachelor of Agricultural Science and a PhD. He has a long distinguished career working in the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine Forest Service up to his retirement a few years ago. He has served as chair of the Coford Council up to recently, and he is a member of the IrBEA Council and chairperson of the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme Steering Committee, and also was involved in the authoring of the IrBEA Solid Biomass Capacity Statement. And today Eugene is going to present on the biomass resource availability and supply from 2025 to 2040. So I'd now invite both Eugene and Iris to join us on the stage.
Okay, thanks Sean, and thanks to IrBEA for inviting me here today. Look, I'm going to try to outline to you a couple of things, as Sean has said. One is the resource, the wood solid biomass resource that's out there and is coming on stream, and show you how we estimate that, or how it has been estimated. I'm going to also talk a bit about wood quality, because obviously the two go hand in hand. You know, the resource, it's all right having a resource, but you need the right kind of a resource. You need the right quality material. I'm going to refer to some publications that Coford has issued in the last, since the end of last year, that are sort of outline some of the things I will be talking about. They're all, everything I speak about is available online on the Coford website. All the reports that I will refer to, and I think there's some hard copies of the reports as well will be available in the room if Shane Flanagan is here. I don't see Shane. Shane is there. If you want copies, he has a limited number of two of the Coford Modern Bioenergy report and the specified the wood energy forecast. So without further ado, I'll go ahead. Okay, so Sean asked me to speak a bit about Coford, which is the National Council for Forest Research and Development. So I won't bore you with this, but I think it's useful as a background, and I particularly want to focus in on the work that Coford did in relation to setting up a system to estimate the availability and the production of roundwood, what we foresters call roundwood, which is logs and energy that are becoming available on the island of Ireland, you know, in future periods, which is really important. So, okay, Coford was established in 1992. It was under the auspices of the Forest Service, which was then in the Department of Energy. So that's when it was set up. It had an initial role around the funding of forest research projects and infrastructure for research under the normal protocols around national funding of research, of all kinds of research. We in Coford focused obviously on forest research. Then it was expanded. The role expanded to cover development issues in the forest sector. So we helped in forest policy analysis and development of policy side, providing technical information. Another key role that we also engaged in was called was forest and climate change. You know, as the climate change issue developed, there was a need to estimate the uptake of carbon dioxide, sequestration in forests and forest products. So we were at the beginning of that, and we have set up the national system to estimate the level of uptake of carbon dioxide and in forests and in wood products. We also had an ancillary role, which sort of grows out of that around wood energy development of the sector, and we have there's a website called woodenergy.ie, which grew out of that work, and it's still up there and available, of course. And then we also looked at forest genetic resources. So that's sort of in a nutshell where the development side went to. We had a very small staff. We had a lot of contractors that we worked with closely around a lot of those areas. So just to say a bit more about Coford, in 2010 we joined our colleagues in the Department of Agriculture, and we set up the new division was called Forest Sector Development Division. And that division continues today within the aegis of the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. It's greatly expanded in terms of numbers. It still covers those areas I've mentioned and some more, including National Forest Inventory. And it's now very well resourced. A lot of people of high expertise working there and of high quality who are engaged in a lot of those areas that I mentioned. And Shane Flanagan is one of those people who's joined in the last few years that division within the department and it's headed up by a senior inspector. So, the kernel of what I wanted to speak about the COVID space is that in 2009 we established what we called the Roundwood Supply Group. It was a stakeholder-driven process with very strong support from DAFM and some outside consultants. So it involved people like the Irish Timber Council, the timber growers, various timber grower organisations. Quilcha, of course, was a key component of that, as well as the Northern Ireland Forest Service. And so it was the first time that we attempted to have an all-Ireland forecast of roundwood. So this is the amount of wood that's going to come available from forests over a particular time horizon, basically. That's what we were trying to estimate. And we got good buy-in from the industry, because industry needs to know, all industry, not just the wood energy industry, of course, but particularly in sawmilling and board manufacture, you need to know how much material is going to be coming out, where it's coming out, and when it's coming out. So that was you need to know it on an all-Ireland basis, because the wood market in Ireland is all-Ireland. It's wood moves around a lot on the island, in both directions. So look, we published the first forecast in 2011, and that ran for the period of 2018, and we've subsequently, or COFORD and the Department now, Forest Sector Development, there's been subsequent forecasts. The most recent one was in 2021, and that covers the period up to 2040. And I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts being given to the department. I'm not involved anymore, thankfully in some ways. But anyway, I've retired. So there's a process there that involves the industry, the people in the department together, working together. And it was good to get buy-in from the industry, because there was a lot of questions about, is this material going to become available, is it not going to become available, and so on. So there was an awful lot of work went into this. I'm just summarising it at a very shallow level, but there's a vast amount of underlying models, algorithms, assumptions, and so on and so forth. But it also always had a wood energy forecast included in the roundwood forecast. It always included that. And if you go on to those, they're all on the COFORD website, or you can find them if you Google them, all those forecasts. The accuracy has improved over time because we've got more information, we've got better algorithms. And another important thing to say is that there's been a look back has been done. What have we forecast and what actually has come out? And you'll see that in the forest statistics publications that are annually issued by the department. And by and large, they're quite close, the two. The forecast and the harvest is quite close. In some years, it's very close. Other years, market fluctuations obviously have an impact. But I think to say what the objective was to provide robust and realistic forecasts of wood volumes becoming available under normal market conditions, and to provide confidence to investors and policymakers about this material that was becoming available. A key concept in the forecast system is net realizable volume. It's not a biological forecast. The biological forecast is a multiple of what is actually going to become available, because you need to know, you have to say, discount for areas that might not be thinned or would be thinned, or size, and there's access issues and so on and so forth. So it's a very conservative estimate. I want to emphasize that. It's a conservative estimate. And so is the energy forecast. I'll come to that later on. And it's purposely so because if people want to have assurance, they need to know, what's more than likely to come out. So it's conservatively based. So this net realizable volume concept, it didn't just come out of the air. It was agreed. It was from the producer side and from the sawmilling side. They wanted to get a handle on what's going to come out. So we came up with this, and it's worked quite well, I would say. So it's basically the estimated roundwood volume that will be potentially available to the end user. And as I said, it's not a biological forecast. It's an actual estimated realistic forecast. All right, so I'm going to come back to that in a while, but also Sean asked me to talk to you a bit about the Wood Fuel Quality Assurance Scheme that Noel Gavigan from IrBEA runs. As well as the amount of material, obviously, it's quite important that we have quality material. And the basis of the quality of the wood fuels we use is what's called ISO 17225, which is sort of the Bible that we use. It's a nice. It was originally developed as a SEN standard, but it's now been expanded and it's used as an ISO standard, and it's also an IS. It's an Irish standard for biofuels. It's got fuel specification and classes. So it specifies for each wood fuel type, wood chip, pellets, briquettes, firewood. It gives you specifications. So if you're somebody who's setting up a boiler or wants to get, have a tender or whatever the case may be, you can call up these specifications, and they have to be met. They're quite tight, and there's a vast amount of work again went into to those. We had a role in that as well because we funded people to be involved in that process. So, in terms of development of 17225. So that's the standard that's used by the WFQA in terms of for the scheme. So as I said, the scheme is managed by IrBEA and is it has a membership-based steering committee guided by scheme rules. There's a set of scheme rules which are updated from time to time, and there's also a 5-year strategy. It's over 15 years in existence. It's got has grown to about 100 members currently, or slightly over 100. Noel has a better handle on that. It's got national coverage, and it covers all the main wood fuel types, from wood chip, as I said, pellets, briquettes, and firewood is an important enough sector at all scales, from industrial to residential. So if you want to get quality wood fuel, you can go to we're not the only show in town, there are other schemes out there. But if you want to get quality wood fuel, you can go to the WFQA suppliers, and they'll be able to supply you with wood pellets or wood fuel quality material. Okay, so Sean also asked me, and most of you in the room I'm sure are very familiar with this, so what are the main wood fuels used for industrial heating, which are wood chip and wood pellets. Now there's a lot of stands around the room here that you can see, from Balcas, one of the sponsors, to Leinster Pellets I see, and Clear Power, and there's other companies there show you examples of wood chip and wood pellets. So look, they're manufactured in Ireland. There's 2 companies make pellets, as again most of you in the room know. There's Balcas, and then there's Leash Sawmills. And then there's a lot of people who produce wood chip to the ISO EN standard and certified by WFQA. So wood chip, where does it come from? So it's processed from thinnings and residues, from sizes that are below the sizes of trees that were taken out for wood energy. This is a very important point. Are below what we call stake wood, which is smallish but not too small material, and sawlog assortments. And they're not included in the energy forecast. They're taken aside. So they're not included, just to make that clear. Why? Because under the Red Tree Directive, it's really important that you look at the cascade principle, and that's a new thing in Red Tree. So you need to make every effort to direct the wood into board manufacture or sawmilling, and particularly for the larger sizes, and that's important. And you cascade that wood then down through various means. But there's always an additional amount of wood that can be used for wood fuel, and that's what we're talking about here. So sustainability is a key issue, and you'll be hearing about that as well. It's really, really important. But just to make the point again, almost zero sawn timber or stake wood goes in to make wood fuel, apart from residues from sawmilling. Of course, that's a big source for manufacture of pellets, probably the main source. And again, that's fully sustainable. So just to make that point, it's often people ask, you know, you're not cutting down trees to burn them. You know, you're not cutting down saw log or stake wood. It's very, very small material. And there's a lot of synergies in that operation of taking out small material. I'm not going to go into those today, but suffice to say, there's a win-win situation there in terms of forest management. By getting in at an early stage, and you can accelerate your growth and your size growth. So there's a lot of synergies there. So wood chip, as I said, from thinnings and residues. And I talked about the sizes, and so accords with the general sustainability principles. And what we need to do in Red 3 and asks us to do is to put wood into the most climate advantageous use of the wood resource. Essentially, that's the key concept. And we would argue that wood fuels abide by that key principle. Wood pellets are made from sawdust and from sustainably sourced saw logs that is milled and dried to a moisture content of about 8% and extruded and sold there. So look, the energy content of conifer wood, if you're just interested in this, it's an easy one to remember. There's an empirical formula that you can estimate based on the weight. It's a weight-based estimate. So you can there's a book called Wood as a Fuel, which I was involved in writing, and it's up there. I think you can still get it on Amazon. But there's other there are other ones. There's Coforth Connects notes, and these this empirical formula allows you. It's a very, very useful tool actually. If you know the moisture content, whether there's separate ones for conifers and broadleaves, separate empirical equation, but it's for temperate areas, Europe particularly, and if you use it, you can estimate the net calorific value very, very simply. Once you know the moisture content and the weight, you can estimate of any batch of wood fuel, and it's there. So a ton, just for example, just for information, a ton of conifer wood at 40% moisture content is equivalent to about 10.5 gigajoules of energy. And the lower the moisture content, obviously, the higher the calorific value. And so, of course, the actual energy recovery won't be that because you obviously have efficiencies and so on. So, look, I'm going to just talk about a couple of Coforth reports. How am I doing on time? I'm probably 5. All right, okay. So, look, we have 2 Coforth reports. There's one on modern bioenergy, and it's a long report. It looks at all the policies and measures that are out there in terms of decarbonisation. It does a critique of them, and it tries to say, and it does say that wood, as William Walsh has said, there is a role for wood biomass in decarbonisation, because as he pointed out, we need to look at all the feasible, economically and environmentally and sustainable solutions to decarbonisation, and wood has a role there. It's not a massive role, but there is a role there. So it looks at that and includes a series of recommendations, which I'm not going to go into today. And then probably more relevant to today is there's a supply we did a sensitivity analysis of the large forecast about wood fibre potentially available for wood energy, which sort of looked at, you know, if you were to do very feasible technical adjustments in terms of slightly increase the area of thinning, it would cover more residues at clear fell, and use some more whole tree harvesting, first thinnings particularly. You can increase, it's not a vast increase, but you can increase the level of recovery sustainably. So I'm just going to briefly go through those. Now, there's a large table here, and as I said to you, You can get this information on the web. It's a PDF, and you can see it. You can interrogate it, and you can see the assumptions that were made. I mentioned the main ones, but look, in a nutshell, the current use of forest-based biomass, you could say, is about 1.5 million green tonnes per year. So that gives us around 10 petajoules in round numbers per annum. And that's from the SCAI most recent data I could find. But there is significant potential, and you can see there we can go up to, by 2050, by 2035, we can get up to 2.5 million green tonnes, which would give us 16 petajoules. It's just to make again the point, it's material from existing forests. There's no assumption made about future afforestation. So we know where the resource is in terms of its location, and we know when it will come on stream. As I said, the real world assumptions, it's a realizable forecast. We also looked at the potential to supplement forest-based biomass using short rotation coppice. Now, the short rotation coppice scheme is no longer there, but the work was done in the SCAI heat studies, and they looked at potential to expand the use of coppice. And it showed that if you combine the two, if you have an annual short rotation coppice establishment program of around 2,000 hectares a year to 2040, combined with forest-based biomass, it could deliver about 20 petajoules by 2040. That's around about 3.5% of the total energy supply, roughly at the moment. Obviously, the total energy supply probably is going to grow in the future. So it's a modest overall contribution, I suppose, in the big scheme of things. But an important point is at the margin, when you're considering decarbonisation and you're chasing additional tons of movement away from fossil fuel, it's quite important actually, and it's an important potential source of carbon neutral heating, industrial heating. So just about the wood fuel sustainability and origin and supply. So over 90% of the wood fuel that we use in Ireland comes from the island. This is based on SCI data. As I said, it's sourced from thinnings, harvest residues, and sawmill residues from quilch in the private sector, the private sector is a growing source of supply. So all fellings are licensed by DAFM, by the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine, and conform to national and EU Renewable Energy Directive sustainability requirements. So harvest residues are also covered under the IrBEA specified biomass harvest protocol. This is a publication IrBEA has done up, and it sets out the best way to harvest final harvesting residues in a sustainable way. It's available on the web as well. So the annual harvest, the overall sustainability piece is that the annual harvest between 2017 and 2022 averaged about 4.1 million cubic metres. I'm talking cubic metres now. And the annual increment at the same time, average annual increment was 10 million cubic metres. So the harvest was about 41% of the increment. So, that's a key indicator of sustainable forest management, is to maintain harvest below increment over extended periods of time. So that speaks to the wood fuel sustainability piece as well. I won't go on much longer. So forest-based biomass supply, there's a capacity statement. I think this is really relevant to today, that IrBEA has produced. It goes into all sorts of capacities, including the specification capacity, supply capacity, the resource, some of the stuff I've talked about today, the expertise in the supply chain, as I said, in installation and maintenance, and it talks about the resource. Again, it's on the web. So there's plant maintenance and maintenance skills, as I said, and we talked about sustainably managed forests. Talked about specified biomass harvesting, just to make the point that It outlines good practice in the harvesting of forest residues. These are residues that arise from clear felling. There's a lot of this, about 20,000 hectares a year of clear felling in Ireland. And there's a resource there that's potential to be tapped. It's not being utilised to the extent that it might be, and we also make an assumption in the report and in the forecast about some increase in that area. It's a planned and systematic approach to taking out this material. It's not haphazard. There's no brash. Brash is what you put under the machine. This is an actual assortment that's taken out. It's often called brash harvesting, but that's a misnomer. You actually, in this system, you treat it as an actual an assortment at felling. You leave the material on the ground for a period of time, so the needles will fall off. So you harvest carbon and you leave the nutrients on the site. And it's probably the most effective biomass stream in the space in the fossil fuel emissions, because the carbon is oxidized through combustion rather than through on-site decay. And also proportion of material is left on site, and regeneration is facilitated by windrowing, which is sometimes done, is avoided. So it makes for easier, cheaper, and more effective regeneration. Finally, some points here about realising the potential of forest-based biomass. So the view that expressed in that publication, COFOR publication, is that a national bioenergy strategy should be developed and set out general aims for bioenergy and use into the future, taking into account the existing biomethane policy. There should be a separate budget for a separate target for solid biomass to be included in the district heating part of the climate change plan, and the support scheme for renewable heat should be continued and possibly extended to the ETS, as we've heard. That would be a good development. Be driven by concerted and sustained promotion of the scheme by both industry and SCAI, and based on the findings of the feasibility assessment of carbon capture and storage, the technical and economic feasibility of integrating new large-scale district heating and industrial heating with BECCS should be investigated. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks very much, Eugene, for your comprehensive presentation, and all of the data and evidence suggests that there's a significant volume of biomass resource available for utilisation by the sector in terms of industrial heat decarbonisation. Eugene referred to a number of documents. We have some physical hard copies of each of the documents on our stand here for anyone that wants them. We also have more available. If you wanted them posted to you, we can arrange for that to happen. And as Eugene said, they're all available on the IrBEA website and indeed the COFOR website as well. And we will be circulating the recording of the presentation, so we could maybe attach a link to the documents as part of that. So thank you, Eugene, and if you have any questions for Eugene, we'll take them at the end